There are two ways to overload the method. One is by changing number of arguments and by changing data type. The extends keyword indicates that you are making a new class that derived from the existing class. Subclass is responsible for inheriting another class and it is also called derived class. Hello to all, a heartily welcome to my new session on classes, objects and methods. I'm Revati from the Department of Computer Science, Vidhyaashram, First Grade College, Temple of Excellence, MYSURU. So dear student, in this session, I'm going to deal with how to create class as well as how to make use of class. Before that, let me to recall the things what I have discussed in my last session of this chapter, that is constructor in Java. So what is constructor? So dear student, please make a note here. The class name same as method name and it is mainly used to initialize the object, and the constructor does not have any return value. So these 3 points you have to remember while studying constructor. Then I started with rules for creating Java constructor. That means how can I create Java constructor? What are the rules I need to follow while creating constructor? Along with that, I have discussed type of constructor. So there are 2 type of constructor: parameterized constructor as well as default constructor. And from the examination point of view, this is very important topic. Now in my today's session, at the beginning, I'm going to deal with method overloading. Along with that, I'm going to deal different way to overload the methods as well as exchanging data type. That means how can I changing data type of arguments, as well as I'm going to deal with inheritance in Java, different type of inheritance and how to write inheritance, the syntax of Java inheritance, as well as which term is used to implement inheritance in Java. These are the topic I'm going to deal in my today's session. So dear student, please make a note here. From the examination point of view, method overloading as well as inheritance is very important. You can expect 2-mark question as well as 7-mark or 8-mark question from these 2 topic. Now at the beginning, I'm going to start with method overloading. So overload means what? There is nothing but method overloading. For example, think that if I'm having only one function add, then it is called method. Then if I'm having same method twice, then it is called method overload. So overload means what? More than one method. So here see, I'm going to use same method twice. But what is the difference here? The methods are differ each other with respect to return type as well as parameters. So here Java supports method overloading. If a class has multiple method, so what is multiple? That is nothing but more than one method, and that method must have same name. That means method name must be same, but arguments as well as return types are different, and that is called method overloading. Now let me to consider one simple example here, that I'm having 10th marks card, 2nd PUC marks card as well as my master's marks card. And if I consider all the marks card, what is common? That is, my name is common. So I'm going to treat that one as my method. Then if I consider the subject, then in each marks card I'm going to have different subject, and it is called parameters. And what about marks? In 10th I'm having marks card, but in my second PUC once again marks card, and in masters I'm having marks card. But what is common there? That is my name. So here names are called methods and subjects are treated as parameters. And if I consider my result, then it is my return value. So this is for my 10th. And if I consider 12th, once again I'm going to have my marks along with my name and along with different subjects. So this is the best example for method overloading. Now consider this example. See, here I'm going to have method, that is my method, and here also I'm going to have my method, and here also I'm going to have my method. Now here I'm having three my method. So three same function, but what's the difference I'm having? That is with respect to return type as well as parameter. And if I consider first method, what is the return type? It is integer. And what's the parameter? Once again it is integer. And if I consider second time, I'm going to have float. It is my return type. And what about parameter? Once again it is float. And if I consider third time, see here my method name is my method, and what about return type? It is different. And what about parameter? Once again it is different. And how it's going to execute? What's the job of the compiler? When we include method overloading in our program, at the beginning, compiler is going to check the method name. And if more than two functions are having same method name, then compiler is going to check the parameters. And if two or more method having same parameters, then compiler is going to check the return type. This is the way the method overloading is going to work. Now, different ways to overload the methods. That means how can I overload the method? I know that method overloading is nothing but same function I'm going to use in my program more than one time. So there are two ways to overload the method. One is by changing number of arguments and by changing data type. So here let me to write the example for changing number of arguments. Now see here I'm going to have add function and I'm going to pass only one argument. In the second time, same add function, here I'm going to pass two argument, and this is the example for by changing number of arguments. See here, method names are same here, but what is different? That is parameter. If I consider first method, I'm having only one parameter, and if I consider second method, then I'm having two parameters. And by changing the data type, for example, I'll write same function here. Okay, here the parameter type is integer, and if I write same function with using float data type, then this is example for by changing the data type. See here at the beginning I'm having only one parameter, but what's the difference? The data type, here it is integer. And if I consider second function, I'm having one parameter, but what about the type of parameter, that is float. Now, by changing number of arguments. So this is the simple program used to illustrate by changing the number of arguments. So here argument is nothing but parameters. So what is the function name? Add. And here I'm having add function. Here also I'm going to have add function. But if I consider first add function, what are the parameters? That is integer, 2 parameters. And if I consider next add function, what type of parameter? It is double. And what is the return type? It is double. Here it is integer. Now see here, I'm going to pass the argument with the help of object A dot, and I'm going to call this function. And what are the values I'm going to pass? That is whole number, that is nothing but the integer 11 as well as 11. And if I consider second method, so here I'm passing floating point value and it is received by double. So this is the way I can able to use method overloading in my program. Now the job of the compiler is to differentiate the methods based on the parameters as well as based on the type of parameter and number of parameter as well as based on the return value. Now I'm going to have another example, that is changing data type of arguments. Now I want to change the type of argument. See here I'm having integer. So here once again I'm having double. Now what is the difference I'm having here? That is parameter types are vary. That is data types are going to vary. See here I'm using integer, but what about this one? It is double. So both the data types are different. This is the way also I can able to use method overloading in my program. And here I'm passing integer number and here I'm passing floating point number and it is termed as double. Now I'm going to have next very important concept, that is inheritance. So what is inheritance? Let me to consider simple example here. Think that my dad owns some property. I repeat, my dad owns some property. Now I can able to have that property because I can able to inherit or I can able to acquire that property because I'm the daughter of my dad. So whatever the property my dad is going to have, same property I can able to have. That is called inheritance. And why I required inheritance? Simply writing program, we can able to make use of existing property or existing code. Instead of writing same code again and again, we can able to make use of existing code or program. So here inheritance in Java is a mechanism in which one object can able to acquire the properties as well as behavior of parent object. So here one object, that is called subclass, can able to acquire the object or property or behavior of parent class. For example, think that P1 is my parent class and it have some property as well as behavior. And if I'm having subclass, then this subclass can able to have all the properties as well as behavior of parent class. It is very important part of object oriented programming. That is nothing but reusability is very important part of object oriented programming, and all the inheritance represents is a relationship. So it is very important to have is a relationship between parent class as well as child class, and it is also known as parent child relationship. So dear student, please make a note here. Here parent is nothing but superclass and child is nothing but subclass. There must be a is a relationship or parent child relationship between both the class. Now the term used in inheritance. So what are the terms we can able to use in inheritance? For example, think that my class is P. This is my parent class and I'm having child class C. Now I'm going to use the keyword extends P. This is the way I can able to implement inheritance in Java program. That means if child want to acquire all the property as well as behavior of parent class, then the parent class must be extended with child class. So at the beginning, I'm going to have the terminology class. So here first I want to create a class. So what is this class? There is nothing but the user defined data type, or it is nothing but the blueprint or template, and which have common properties. It's also called blueprint, or it's also called template, for which we are going to create the object. So it is a group of object. What is class? In simple word, it is group of object. Then what about subclass or child class? Here subclass is nothing but once again a class which inherits another class. That means subclass is responsible for inheriting another class, and it is also called derived class. So dear student, please remember here, if I consider child class, then it is also called subclass and it's also called derived class. And if I consider parent class, it is called superclass and it is also called base class. It's also called base class. It's also derived class, extended class or child class. That means I can able to use the words for subclass as derived class or extended class or child class. Along with that, I'm going to have superclass or parent class. So this is also a class from where a subclass inherits the feature. That means superclasses are the class from where the subclass inherits the features, and it's also called base class or parent class. I hope you understood the terminology related to inheritance. Now, this is the syntax used to write inheritance in Java. So here at the beginning, I'm going to have class. Along with that, I'm going to have child class name or subclass name or derived class name, and I want to write the keyword extends, and here I'm going to have parent class name or base class name or super class name, and here I'm going to have methods as well as data fields. Now the extends keyword indicate that you are making a new class that derived from the existing class. So here I'm going to create new class, and what is my new class name? That is subclass name. And what is the existing class? That is nothing but the superclass. The meaning of extends is to increase the functionality. So here what is the meaning of this keyword? Increase the functionality by inheriting different classes. Now, I'm going to have the type of inheritance. So, dear student, from the examination point of view, this is also very important topic. So, here I'm having 5 different type of inheritance. So, at the beginning, I'm going to have single inheritance, multi-level inheritance, hierarchical inheritance, etc. So I'm having total 5 types. Now let me to consider single inheritance. Here I'm having one parent class and one child class. So here I'm having only one parent class and one child class. And what is multi-level? Here I'm having 3 classes. So this is the parent class, and if I consider this is my parent, and class B is nothing but the child class. And if I consider class C is child, then for this child class, class B is parent class. I repeat, if I consider class A, then this is the parent class to class B. And if I consider class B, this is the parent class to class C. In general terminology, I can able to consider this is grandfather, father and son. Okay, this kind of representation is called multi-level inheritance. And I'm having hierarchical. So what is this hierarchical? I'm having only one parent. For one parent, I'm having 2 children. So this is my parent class, and this is my child 1 and this is child 2. Now both the childs are capable to acquire all the properties as well as features of parent class. Now I'm having multiple inheritance. So here I'm having class A and I'm having class B. So here I'm having 2 parent and I'm having only one child. That means this child class capable to acquire the properties of class A as well as class B. And dear students, just remember one thing, that in Java, Java does not support multi-level inheritance. To achieve multi-level inheritance in Java, we are going to have interface. Anyway, we are going to study what is interface, how to implement interface, or how to extend. These are the things in my upcoming session. But at present, you just want to remember that Java does not support multi-level inheritance that can be achieved with the help of implements. Now, let me to consider the last type, that is hybrid. So, if I consider the hierarchy, grandfather, father and son. Okay, for one grandfather, there are 2 sons. And if I consider 2 parents and there is 1 son. So here this kind of inheritance is called hybrid. That means this class D can able to acquire the properties of class B as well as class C as well as class A. So this is the advantage as well as the type of inheritance. So dear student, in my today's session, you got more information about what is method overloading and the different way we can able to overload the methods. Along with that, I have discussed what is inheritance, what is the need of inheritance, and how to implement inheritance. Along with that, the different types of inheritance. So dear student, in my next session, I'm going to deal with single inheritance with example what is method overriding as well as usage of Java method overriding as well as rules for Java method overriding. So dear student, from the examination point of view, these two are the very important topic and short question. So don't forget to watch my next session because there I'm going to deal with example for single inheritance as well as method overloading. So dear students, let's meet in the next session with some more information about classes, objects and methods. Until then, keep watching and keep learning. Thank you.